Hello, and welcome to the Talent Empowerment Podcast. I am your host, Tom Finn, co-founder and CEO of LegUp. Each week, we journey into the minds of game-changing CEOs, executives, talent development savants, and successful leaders from a variety of industries. We dissect their strategies, explore their career paths, and uncover how they're fostering a people-first culture within their communities. Our mission, our goal, to help you love your job and supercharge your career. So let's get started and dive right in. Welcome to the show, my friend. Today we are learning from Larry McAlister. Larry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Tom. Happy to be here and looking forward to chatting.
Well, if you don't know Larry, let me take just a moment to introduce you to this very strategic and energetic senior leader. He's a three-time head of HR. He's sought after as a thought leader in the HR space and was named to the top 50 Human Resource Professional Awards. That's done by OnConferences, and that happened in January of 2021. He's also led HR and talent at 5 tech-focused, very fast-growing organizations, including 3 Bay Area Fortune 500 companies. If that wasn't enough for you, he's written a book and he is the author of an Amazon bestseller, The Power to Transform. So let's just start with some of your background here. In HR, how do you navigate such dynamic, changing environments as an HR professional?
Yeah, think of it how we came out of the pandemic, right? What is more dynamic than that? So working in a global company during a pandemic, challenged us all. And at the beginning, it was a little bit easy, not for the COVID, but all companies shut down. So one big switch was pulled and we all try to figure out what to do. Yeah. Now, everyone's pulling the switch a different way. So every company is handling it differently and it's super complicated. So my core go-to talent strategy is make it as simple and transparent as humanly possible. For many years, HR, finance made it more difficult, put forms and mandatory things and made it as difficult as possible for the manager and the employee to really connect in an authentic, purpose-driven future way. So our goal is to rip everything out and put in things. Ripping out is everyone can do it. What you replace it with is what makes a difference. So having one golden threaded communicated talent strategy that the whole company knows about, and you continue to talk about that. And why are we doing it this way? How does it help you as the individual and the business? And then bringing in technology to propel that strategy, making it much easier to have conversations and plan for the future and take care of yourself during these trying times. So simplicity, authenticity goes a long way during trying times like these.
Yeah, it seems like such a simple answer, but I got to remember, you're an HR guy. You're not supposed to say simple things. You're supposed to overcomplicate it and make it fill out forms.
Right.
So it's refreshing to hear somebody say, let's make it easier on the employees. Why do you think HR has sort of gone down that compliance route for so long?
Well, one, compliance is safety in some way, but we've figured out compliance generally, right? We don't have to make it more difficult, mandatory trainings and filling out long forms. But remember, it used to be called personnel. People were widget makers. You could easily measure someone's productivity by how many widgets or cars they made. Now, humans are so much more, jobs and humans are so much more complex and complicated. You just can't widgetize it or put it in a box. So our job is to rip the top off of anything that slows us down and implement things like coaching, peer-to-peer coaching, thinking about your future in this company, even in a hybrid environment, thinking about the future. And I love the name of your podcast is Talent Empowerment. When I was at my last company, I changed the name of my learning and development team from talent management to talent enablement, because I think that's a big difference. We're not here to manage you. I'm not here to manage you. I'm not here to babysit you. I'm here to enable you to have the best work you've ever done at this company in this very difficult time.
Yeah, well, that's why you're on the show, Larry, because you and I think alike when it comes to some of this stuff, and that's the reason it's not called the Talent Management Podcast. Right. That would likely be very boring.
Totally.
So when you think about HR, that was sort of then. And now, how do you look at that sort of sphere of influence in the modern workforce today?
So no matter where you are in an organization, you are in a transformation. No matter what
Mhm.
company you work for, you're either having a new sales force, a new go-to-market strategy. You're acquiring, you're divesting, you're laying off, you're bringing in new technologies, you're going after new markets. All of that is transformation. So I think of it as the three T's: the talent strategy. You have to be a talent strategist, plus HR technology. You are a technologist. Don't wait for someone to bring technology to you. It won't happen. There is thousands, literally thousands of companies and billions of dollars invested in HR technology. We have caught up. We have caught up to all the other technologies in business. If you put those two together, propelling each other, that's how you drive transformation, which is behavior change for the better over a longer period of time.
Yeah, for sure. So I got talent and tech. Those were 2 out of 3. Is transformation the third one?
The third, right? T plus
Okay.
T equals T.
Okay.
It's old school
Uh,
algebra.
I love it. I love it. So transformation, talent, and technology is really the modern way forward for organizations.
Right.
That's the way you're thinking about it.
I think HR is responsible for that in many ways because, there's always a business transformation. The talent transformation has to tie up with that to speed it up. You can talk about and drive the new business model, but if the people aren't being caught up to it and changing the way they're approaching their jobs, you're slowing down or maybe failing the business transformation. So tying those two together is super important. A lot of times you go to a big consultant, they'll focus a lot on the business one and dangle some ideas for the people one. And that's why HR has to be forefront in being the people transformation experts.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. I feel the same way. I feel like consulting practices tend to focus on the core processes or principles of the business, which is cool. I mean, that's been around a long time, but really, talent is the driving force of success in today's economy, and it is
100%.
not. It is not process and principles. It's
All right.
really people.
It is, and empowering them and making them feel that they have a future here and a very clear way of what their job does, what their effort does to drive success in the business. I mean, isn't that the perfect two wheels on the bicycle? The business is doing great and I'm doing great. Faster, faster, faster. I mean, it's an unbeatable proposition.
And and what percentage of leaders do you think recognize and actually act on creating change in this space?
So I think trying to do some change is probably pretty common, which is I have a little piece of a problem I want to solve. Let's do some change management, which is telling people how to do it over a short period of time. You have to enable an entire approach to what we're going to do differently. And I'm saying, like, people I talk to are very much caught in a rut of, let me just get from A to B. Let me focus on retention. Let me focus on hiring, which you always will do. But how are we leapfrogging our thoughts and technology to make that easier, better, and almost an afterthought because we know it so well? Like, there's technology now. You don't have to go run a report. There's no more ask and answer. You just type in who's going to turn over my company, and it tells you. I mean, right? All this stuff about turnover. We've been talking about it for years. There are so many more dynamic ways to look at it and understand it than there's ever been before. So you are a technologist.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the latest and greatest in tech spaces. These 2 letters that seem to come up all the time. Starts with an A and ends with an I. What is your take on artificial intelligence and its role in organizations?
So AI is what we've had for a while, right? So there's tools inside of your systems that can think faster for you and get you to answers faster. Where we are now is generative AI, which is the fastest, most impactful technology we've had in our lifetimes. I was talking at a conference and someone said, since fire, that's how big a change it is, since the advent of fire. So this is the first time in our life as a normal person on planet Earth that you are literally collaborating with a machine. You are literally collaborating with a machine. So we're in the golden age of HR technology, and generative AI is at the forefront. And our job is to get a better understanding of what that is and how it can help us. Like I said, one tool is that, right? You just say, who's going to turn over why? What can I do about it? Instantly. Or, hey, I need to build a quick deck to communicate to my team on these three things, by the time it takes you to get up and get a cup of coffee, that deck is built. So our jobs are all going to change. Some are going to go away. Our real job now is to be tech augmented leaders. That's the future of where organizations and leaders and everyone needs to think of how they are. You're a little bit like a cyborg. You know, our heart and our soul and our creativity is always going to be in demand. Always. That's never going to be replaced, even though the writers went on strike because they're worried about AI writing scripts for them. But that's always going to be in demand. What we need to do is think about, how do I harness all of these tools to help me use the human power faster, get out of the boring stuff of our job, and open our minds to using these tools to solve bigger problems faster, with your mind and your teams really delivering on that.
Yeah, look, I've always looked at technology as something that gets the mundane stuff off the desk, right? And I'm not sure generative AI is any different in terms of getting some mundane stuff off my desk. Like Larry didn't want to do, 3 hours of working on a PowerPoint deck. There was no value in your 3 hours.
Because I'm bad at it, right?
Yeah, sitting there on a PowerPoint deck. Like that didn't create any value for your company or for you, but you had to do it because you need to communicate effectively and you need to be able to send it to people and present, right? But that wasn't where the thought process came. What you really needed was it done for you, make a few tweaks, make it make sense to you and your audience, and then go deliver it.
Right. And your brain is still in there. You're still editing that or tweaking it or using the tool to do something different. But it cuts time out of the things that you don't want to waste on. Even for me, I use this tool that evaluates me while I'm on Zoom and says you're talking too fast, you're saying too many times, you're saying a monologue, you're interrupting women, and then at the end it gives you feedback. So all these kind of tools surrounding you, like, hopefully I just said so hopefully I'm not saying as much on these podcasts because I'm learning with this tool helping me real time.
Yeah, I've used that as well. And it's not that fun. You start to realize how many mistakes you make on Zoom and how you really need to clean up your act. You're going to get a lot of red marks around the word like, Larry, in your report after this.
I always do. And the tip they give you is if you're putting filler words in, you're talking too fast and your brain is getting ahead of your mouth. So slow down so you don't have to fill in a word. That's the tip that I'm working on.
Yeah. Well, so what do you see in AI specifically in terms of job creation or job elimination?
So there will be some jobs that are eliminated that are primarily rote jobs, right? There are things that can just be done with large language models that you won't have to do anymore. So the idea is, and I've seen this said in different ways, most people won't have a tool replace your job. But the people who are taking advantage of these tools, augmenting their jobs, will take your job, right? People will leapfrog your skill set. This is the most important skill set to learn about. But so I just talked about instant data, right? Instant analytics. That changes the entire analytics department of your company. For them, they don't have to worry about these nickel and dime, make me a dashboard or run me a report. They could think about long-term future analytic planning. Right, their brains move up 3 times and get out of the basics of analytics because any manager can have it instantly within seconds. Like I was talking about, people who can tools that can take your new sales process, your new go-to-market process, break it down into bite-sized trainings and deliver to your senior salespeople in a way or your junior salespeople in a way, so they never have to be in a training. They never have to be in a class. They never have to be away from the customer. So that changes the sales enablement and the L&D department in an entirely different way. Let's focus on making sure the go-to-market process is fantastic because we don't have to worry about the training of it, right? That takes that whole thing off of your plate. So I think, how our jobs are going to be affected is immense.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I see it as a positive for the little bit that I've dabbled in using some of the really outskirts of what's available to us. It just makes my life a little faster, and
100%.
I'm able to get through my own processes quicker, which gives me more time to be thinking about what I need to be doing.
Right. One of the one of the concepts in the book is going from 0 to 1 is the hardest thing, right? Having blank sheet of paper or a blank deck or blank transformation. Going from 0 to 1 is the hardest thing. Generative AI gets you from 0 to 0.75 like that. You have to get it to the 1. But just having I don't have an idea of how I'm going to do this. Let me just ask ChatGPT as the most basic of all the AIs, right? About generative AI. Just get you from 0 to 1. So the other day I was looking at my history of ChatGPT. I have one thing, help me define more clearly the 5 ways I'm going to approach this new customer. And then underneath that is, give me the 5 best recipes for leftover turkey. So it's just like, I'm collaborating. I'm collaborating with my tools to have better leftover turkey.
Well, I think that's what we all should be doing, right? I mean, we should be using it in business. We can use it in personal life. We can use it to communicate with others, and I think if we do it right, it really promotes the best version of you, right? The best side of you that maybe you're a little down that day, or you've had a rough conversation with someone, or you're just a little tired, whatever it might be. And if you use ChatGPT in its simplest form, that can give you a much better email to your boss, for example, right? Or to your board, or to an old friend, or write your Christmas card,
right?
Whatever it is.
Yeah, and it just gets you like at the basic, it's better. It breaks writer's block at the basic level. Yep. It breaks writer's block on anything, or some idea of getting a list or creativity, or you're starting to see even in like LinkedIn says you want to reply to, you want the AI tool to help you reply to this. So it's everywhere. It's gonna be everywhere. So our job is to understand it. I have people who got laid off as like recruiters. The first thing they did is take classes on how to write prompts and how to understand generative AI prompting, because they know, as a recruiter, they know I'm gonna have to learn this. I have to understand the basics of what this is. I don't understand all the science, but I have to understand the basics of how these tools work. And that's why this tech augmented leadership, you're going to have things like humility and technical acuity. Like those are the two kind of things at the core of an augmented leader.
Yeah, I love the way you said humility and technology, because I always feel like leadership, the higher you go up, the more humble you need to be. You feel the same way?
I do, because you know less and less about more and more, right? Because you're very focused at the highest level, the board or the CEO staff, or the big things, and 20 clicks down is where the reality is happening. Yeah. Right? And so you start to get out of touch. Now, the power of some of these tools that we were talking about is, I brought in 8 different platforms in my last company, but we still couldn't get them to talk to each other. Now, with this analytics tool I was talking about, it dips into all of those things and gives you the most powerful voice of the employee that we've ever had. You dip into coaching platform, talent mobility platform, your pulse survey, right? All of those are giving you different pieces of data. Now, generative AI could put that together and predict things for you and tell the CEO staff what's really going on all across the organization. Where in the past, we were generally looking at why people left and what the pulse survey said. Yep. We are 100x more powerful now because we can tie all these things together.
Yeah, and quite frankly, why people left is always anecdotal. And we tend to always say, well, it's the manager's fault. The manager didn't do the right thing or whatever, right? And sometimes that is absolutely the case, but sometimes that's the anecdote, and that wasn't even close to the truth.
All right. Can I give you a little story?
Please do.
Story. So you ask someone as they're walking out the door, why are you leaving? What are they going to say? More money, better job. More money, better job. Because that's where their brain is at this moment. What I said is, like, if you live near an airport and, airplanes are flying over all day and you never hear them, then one day you open the window and you're like, there's a lot of planes out there. So I get hit up by recruiters all the time. Many people do. Recruiter calling you and you're like, I don't want to listen. I don't want to listen. I'm a job. One day you listen, you pick up the phone or answer the email from that recruiter. That's your window opening moment. So what were you thinking then? Why did you take that call then? There's something that wasn't better job, more money, most likely. There was something going on in your organization, in your brain, in your team that said, you know what, let me see what else is out there. If you can get at that kind of data, that really is telling. That's a telling moment of what made you open the window, what made you respond to recruiter. By the time you leave, your brain's not even thinking about why I left. You're just thinking about what's next for me.
Yeah, I've never heard it described that way. It's a beautiful way to describe sort of the process for an employee and what they go through, right? They, at some point, they say, no, 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 I'm not replying to that LinkedIn recruiter, or I'm not taking that phone call, or returning that email. And then at some point, you're right, the switch gets flipped, and
You open the window.
and you open the window, and boom, you're taking the phone call, you're answering the email, you're saying, sure, send me the job description on LinkedIn. Happy to look at it, right?
Right. Something changed that made you say yes. And if we can start getting at what changed then, boy, that would tell us a lot.
Yeah, and I think our point collectively is that it's not always the manager. It could be, but there's a million other reasons that
the manager helps one way or hurts one way or another. But to just say, that's almost a dismissive. Well, nothing you can. It's almost like saying, well, nothing we can do about it, and that's never the right answer.
So, what does the future of human resources look like? I mean, you said transformation, you said tech, you said talent, but what are like the skills that these particular humans are going to need for this workforce that you've just described as changing rapidly?
Right. So, if you think of say before it was like you have to be a good communicator, right? That's always going to be a skill for HR. Where we're taking that now is you have to be a good communicator in the age of people who have short attention spans, are being hit by 20 different Slacks and emails and all these different things. Or you have to be a good sort of inspirational person to talk about the future of the company. Now you have to talk about the inspiration of someone wanting to work here, where they're not sure they want to come into the office and you're forcing them to come into the office. So I think evolving our skills to be human-centric. Every decision we make is how does it help the human, which helps you help the business. Tech-enabled, human-centric are my two sort of words that I have on the bottom of the book here. Human-centric, tech-enabled work culture is shepherded by HR and the leadership.
Well, look, man, you've said book twice, and so now I've said it a third time, which means we're going to go there. So let's talk about this a little bit. The title of the book is The Power of Transformation, and you wrote the book with what in mind?
To help HR and leaders feel that they can be transformation experts without going to pay $1 million check. Right, without trying to get to a 5-year project with some of the big consultants. So this isn't a book about theory. I don't talk about what other companies did or do benchmarking. I literally call it a field guide of how I did it at 2 Fortune 500 companies over the past 10 years, how I completely changed the way employees and managers and leadership and technology work together inside a company. So the idea was to help HR do it and help HR say, you're not a babysitter. You can do this kind of big work, CEO staff. You can do this kind of big work. So I'm giving you the field guide to follow this. Easy terms, easy way to read it, so you can make a difference.
So does it actually take you through a process of doing an analysis and sitting through and thinking about your culture and your divisions and those types of things?
So it's a little less about organizational development. It's more about the full-blown transformation of how a talent strategy speeds up the organization. Mm-hmm. We called it the Thrive ecosystem for high-performing teams. And the core basis there was activate yourself, activate the team, activate the enterprise, and activate the future. That was the golden thread that we talked about the entire time we were there. And behind that are great mindsets and technology to make sure you're doing those. And if you're happy as yourself, you're probably a better teammate. If you're a good team, you probably have a better enterprise. If you have a better enterprise, you probably have a better future. And if you have a better future, you want to stay at that company. So it's a virtuous cycle that I talk about how you brand it, how you get people behind you, how to get leadership to buy into and champion this stuff for you, how to have a tech parade to figure out what problems you're trying to solve. Then you worry about what technology you bring in. So it's very much at the level of enterprise-wide.
That's cool. It's really nice that you took the time to build something like that and write the book, because I tend to find that HR leaders are so overwhelmed now with the thousands of tech products available to them that they're just not sure which ones not only are the best for their organization, but how they work together. And then And then how do you even make a buying decision? Because some of
Mm-hmm.
the complexities are big and big, hairy kind of things you got to figure out.
Yeah.
So how did you sort of boil this down for everybody to make it easy?
I think the biggest thing, and as I do some consulting now, this is what HR tech companies selling to HR people have to think about. And what HR folks buying tech have to think about is it's not about the technology, it's about what problem you are trying to solve. What are the biggest three things you're trying to solve? If you just go buy a piece of technology, bring it in, never going to get maximum ROI out of that. Guaranteed. It's not build it and they will come like in that movie.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason. So as you talk about, hey, this is our talent strategy. Here's the four elements, right? We all agree with this. We talked about personal growth and whole person. So we're going to bring in a coaching organization to make sure that that happens, that we learn how to be better to ourselves and grow as a whole person inside a company. So solve the problem. And then what I tell the HR tech companies is don't just point to your shiny new baby. Solution. What solution are you bringing to the company? And what we did is we brought in 16 vendors at a tech parade. We knew exactly what problems we were going to solve. We knew what the scoring system was, just so we were all on the same page. And then you can start comparing and contrasting. And it blew my mind like, whoa, there's so much out there. Just bring in ones that we know or get references on. And I talk a little bit about in there of how you do that.
Yeah, I love it. So the type of reader for this book is aimed at leaders in large organizations. HR people, tell us who should buy it.
Yeah. So I think anyone who, like I said earlier, we're in a transformation, whether you know it or not, right? It's happening to all of us. Some are huge, some are small, but your employees are being affected every day. So if you are in any kind of position, even if you're an employee, you can learn of what change means in a transformation sense. And even if you want to change your team, how do you give them the vital few, and how do we all focus on these one goals and brand this and make it happen? I think at the top level, leadership and HR are the primary ones, but anyone who is in charge of any change, any transformation can get something out of this book.
Yeah, I think the other piece is managers. I think we forget about these managers across organizations that are running mini organizations. I mean, I felt like when I was in corporate America and I had teams of anywhere from 30 to 70, that I felt like I was in charge of that part of the business unit.
You are.
And I was held accountable
You
for
are.
the performance, right? And so I think this book, if you've got a team of, gosh, I would say 10 or 15 plus, right, would be a great read as well.
Right. And to your point, Tom, maybe your organization isn't great at transformation. You're still the manager of 30 people or 10 people. How do you take whatever they're trying to do and help your team transform to that? You could do it yourself if your org isn't doing it so great. And that's what the best managers do, right? I'll get you over this hill. I know they're not doing it great, but let's get over this hill until we get to the next hill.
I always said, and I think I still do, my job is to keep the organization off of the team when you're in large companies. I will take the shrapnel, I will take the bullets, I will take, whatever it is, and I will kind of keep you happy and safe, right? And make sure everybody's taken care of so you guys can do your jobs. Do you think that principle has some flaws in it?
Well, I think you have to be a master curator, right? You have to curate and nourish what the best things for your team are.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to block everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that you want to curate and double down on the things that you think, all right, this is really going to help my team. Let's focus on this. And then help polish or help them digest a little bit more of what you feel is not as important, because not everything fits everyone at the same time. No organization has that. So that's why managers are so critical in transformation.
Yeah, I love it. So when you start to think about the next organization that is a small or a medium-sized company, do the same principles that you're taking from Fortune 500 land actually still work in kind of small and medium-sized businesses?
Yep. Now, there may be a little bit smaller, but the concept is still the same. Golden thread, authenticity, simplicity, and using some part of technology to propel that, and being as clear as humanly possible with your employees of where we're going and why. That's still the core element. And I talk about branding it. So it's kind of a cool thing that people want to do and not making anything mandatory. I talk about the velvet rope. Like Studio 54 used to be a dive bar until they put up a velvet rope and said, you can't come in. So how do you drive some of your change that people are like, whoa, I want to do this. That looks cool. This is the right way to do it. No organization can fail by following those rules.
I love it. So when you think about the next steps within the marketplace and you're thinking about what's going to happen in HR tech, do you see consolidation? Do you see winners and losers? Do you see people going public? Where is your head when you look at the landscape?
It is the Wild West, but I do see signs of consolidation. I know 2 or 3 companies, individual companies, who are selling on the same paper to customers. So they're selling it's 3 different companies selling on one pitch. So they're thinking about how do we have a full solution. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see the big boys, like the hyperscalers, like Google and Microsoft and AWS, driving their own AI products out into the market, having their own training courses on that. So the big will get bigger. There'll be some consolidation. But what I really love to do is look at these little guys who have a dream and a technology, and that helps you see the future, right? Yeah. They're usually the first movers, right? They're usually the innovators that the big guys sort of say, oh, that's a good idea. So I like looking at the little guys because they're the canary in the coal mine of what's coming next.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely dead on. Now, you got a lot of knowledge. You've been doing this long enough. What is your take today on how you got to where you got to? Because it probably didn't start as, Larry was 18, went to college, graduated, and became the CHRO at a Fortune 500 tech company.
Yeah, what I write in the book is I was always like a world creator. So I was the dungeon master, the nerdy dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons. And we had computer baseball in the old Apple II, and I would have my friends come over and build leagues and set up leagues in the basketball court, design my own pinball game. So I was always like a world creator, this idea of I like to see other people playing in my world and seeing how they're doing and getting better at it. So that was always at my core sort of strength or passion. So, I became a L&D director at Citibank when I was young. And they're like, congratulations, you're the youngest director ever in this part of the company. You're L&D director and you have no budget. So I had to create my own training out of thin air, and I had my buddy shoot video of me when the videos were this big. And that's how I really started getting into HR, is through building my own training and building my own L&D stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. And what would you say to somebody who's, a young buck coming up in the HR space? What are the lessons that you would want them to take away?
So I think number one is technology. I mean, we can't stress it enough, understanding where this generative AI is going and see that as, the biggest tool in your tool belt. There's no other way to think about that in any job, HR too. But I always think of like our job is to be aspirational. Like, this is where you can go in this company. This is where you can go in this career. This is how your work can drive change in the world. So aspirational, and then inspirational, helping them understand, cheering them on. And finally, execution. How do we make sure we're landing all the planes? How do we make sure we're delivering to everyone? How to make sure that you're good at providing, feedback, tools, and the best mindsets is really our job now.
So if I'm being honest, Larry, I have found that in my lifetime, the last piece of your commentary, the old execution, is where we see departments, and I don't think it's just HR departments. I think it's departments just in general in organizations start to fall flat. They can be aspirational and inspirational, and the brain and the energy just is not matching what the hands are doing.
Totally, 100%.
And I see a massive disconnect in execution.
You're 100% on. When some other companies I got to, and they're like, we just could never land the planes. We were great at building the planes. We just could never land them. So I say there's 2 kind of cultures in a company. One is the one everyone talks about, which is culture and values and how we treat each other and, sort of the mission statement, right? That's one culture. The second and more important culture is the operational culture. How do we actually get things done here? And a lot of times that takes more cross-functional, more planning, and more accountability. How many meetings have you been in where everybody comes in at the high level, agrees to the next steps, goes back to their team, and nothing gets done.
Yep, a lot.
Constant.
Yeah.
So the best company I ever worked for that did this, when I first came to Silicon Valley, it was a small medical device company fighting all the biggies like Siemens and GE. So they had to execute and be fast. So they did this quarterly event called Dash. So it was like, Q1 dash was probably 1909, and Dash because everyone was running around every quarter to get this done. So everyone in the company had a vital few that they followed. We're all doing this. And every quarter, what are your goals? And they would stand in front of the company or the VPs at a certain point. Sales would come up and say, here's what we're hearing in the market, where we're winning, where we're losing. And here's my goals. Then up will come marketing. Here's our marketing plans for the next quarter. And in that moment, are these two aligned? You stop the meeting if those two things aren't aligned. And then up comes engineering. Here's what's in the pipeline. What do you mean that's in the pipeline? We just heard we're losing business because we don't have X, Y, or Z. So that kind of discipline every quarter, alignment, cross-functional, was the highest executing team and organization I ever worked for. And it takes that kind of discipline to get the kind of execution that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a nice little roadmap for people, and something that actually you could do as a team. You don't have to do that at the enterprise level or the region or the country or whatever it is. You can do that with your organization. It doesn't matter if you have 10 people in your company.
Right. I carried the vital few with me since that year. My teams always have a vital few and our quarterly most important task to achieve that vital few. So yes, you can, as an individual, as a small team, even as like maybe just an apartment, it works.
Yeah. And really it's about getting people on the same page and making sure that our goals are all aligned and that I understand what your objectives are and you understand what my objectives are. So when we get together in 2 weeks and we talk about something, you've got a kind of a sense of where I need to go as well.
Right. And it gives you the power to say no. So someone says, hey, I want you to take on this big project. Like, all right, here's my 5 vital few. Which one do you want me to stop? Because people just pile on and pile on and pile on. And then sooner or later, you're not doing anything.
It's actually a really good point, because part of the gift in business of great leaders and great managers is being able to say no. And it is really a gift and a skill and a talent. You have to be able to say no, but you have to do it at the right times with the right prioritization.
And what's the reason? Why are you saying no? Right. And if you say, we all agreed last quarter, this is the goals. I'm happy to take this one off and add yours, but let's be clear, that's the decision we're all making. And those conversations are seldom, sadly, in a lot of companies.
Yeah, well, I love what you're doing, Larry, and I love the energy that you're bringing to the table. You mentioned just kind of in passing in the conversation that you're doing some consulting work. Tell us a little bit about that, so that we better understand what your focus is.
Yeah, so if you listen today to say, how do I build a talent strategy and make it clear to the organization, very simple and authentic, or how do I tie that to technology? So that's what I'm helping on the HR side. Or if you're a small HR tech company and you're like, I need to get better at my go-to-market, or what do people like you, Larry, think about? Help us build our roadmap or our sales plan. That's really where I'm getting most of my customers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, my friend, for the great work that you're doing and really the way that you're looking at the world in terms of modernization and generative AI, but also people and technology and talent and transformation. I mean, it's really important that we have leaders looking at this thing the right way. And I think you really got your eye on the ball when it comes to what's coming in business.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the kind words coming from you. I value it.
Well, my friend, you are very welcome, and I would love to send people wherever they can find you. What is the best place for somebody to track you down?
Yeah, so LarryMcAlisterBook.com or LinkedIn. I post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn around these topics. So LarryMcAlisterBook.com or LinkedIn. Come look for me.
Yeah, we will put all of that in the show notes for you, my friends. Larry, thank you for joining. It is very much a pleasure to have you on the show, and keep kicking butt and taking names.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Tom. This was a pleasure.
All right, my friends, thanks for joining the Talent Empowerment Podcast. Go check out Larry's book, The Power to Transform, and we'll put it all in the show notes for you. We'll see you next time.